Picture this. You wake up, no glasses on the nightstand, no contacts waiting in their case. You stumble outside, and the whole world, the trees, the path, the horizon, has been set to potato quality. That distant shape in the tall grass. Is it a deer? Or is it a very large, very hungry prehistoric cat? For a huge chunk of adults in the modern world, especially in developed countries, this blurry reality is fixed by a simple piece of tech we slide onto our faces. We're so dependent on it that living without it feels almost impossible. So, what about our ancient ancestors? For tens of thousands of years, there was no backup plan, no optometrists, no prescriptions, no 2-for-1 deals on designer frames. For them, a blurry world wasn't an inconvenience. It was a constant, looming threat. The common assumption, the one that just feels right, is that anyone with bad vision was simply left behind. A tragic footnote in the brutal story of survival of the fittest. You couldn't hunt, you couldn't spot predators, you couldn't find the right plants. You were a liability. You might assume bad eyesight in the ancient world was a death sentence. The turn. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if that grim picture is completely wrong? Archaeological evidence, a closer look at early medicine, and a better understanding of human ingenuity tell a much more fascinating and frankly more hopeful story. The truth about ancient eyesight isn't just about biological luck. It's a sprawling epic of forgotten life hacks, surprising social structures, and the quiet dawn of medical science. It shows that humanity's greatest superpower was never perfect vision, but something far more profound. The real story isn't about being left behind. It's about how our ancestors found ways to see the world and each other more clearly. Section 1. The blurry reality. What were they facing? Before we get to the fixes, we have to appreciate the full scope of the problem. Bad eyesight isn't a single issue. It's a whole spectrum of challenges that ancient people faced, just like we do. First up, there's myopia, or nearsightedness. This is the classic modern vision problem, where distant objects dissolve into a haze while close-up things stay sharp. For a hunter-gatherer, this could be incredibly dangerous. Not being able to tell a predator from a rock formation at a distance would have been a massive disadvantage. Then you have its opposite, hyperopia, or farsightedness. Distant vision might be fine, but anything up close, inspecting a plant for poison, cleaning a wound, or doing the fine, detailed work of making a tool, becomes a frustrating, eye-straining blur. And even if you were blessed with 20/20 vision in your youth, another challenge was inescapable: presbyopia. This is the age-related decline in near vision that happens to almost everyone. As the lens in the eye gets stiffer with age, focusing up close becomes progressively harder. For an elder in an ancient society, this was a crisis. An expert toolmaker, a skilled weaver, or a knowledgeable elder tasked with teaching the young would find their most valuable skills slipping away, their hands still capable but their eyes no longer able to guide them. Their lifetime of wisdom was at risk of being locked away behind a frustrating, blurry veil. Beyond these common errors, there were the ever-present threats of disease, infection, and injury. Conditions like cataracts, where the eye's lens clouds over, would have been a slow descent into blindness. Eye injuries from hunts, fights, or accidents could mean permanent vision loss. And various infections, which we see described in the earliest medical texts, could cause pain, inflammation, and lasting damage. So yeah, the assumption that poor vision was a serious problem is spot on. While maybe not always an immediate death sentence, life would have been filled with peril. It meant a greater reliance on others, a higher risk of accidents, and a constant state of uncertainty. For many, the world wasn't a crisp, high-definition landscape, but a place of ambiguous shapes and threatening blurs. How could anyone possibly thrive? Section 2. The Revelation Part 1. The micro-hacks of survival. Faced with a blurry world, ancient humans didn't just give up. They did what humans do best. They got creative. They developed a series of ingenious micro-hacks, using their own bodies and the world around them to literally bring things into focus. The first and most universal hack is one you've probably used without even thinking: squinting. When you squint, you're creating what's called the pinhole effect. By narrowing the opening for light to enter your eye, you block scattered, unfocused light rays and allow only a direct beam to hit your retina. This makes the image surprisingly sharper. For someone with myopia, a simple squint could be the difference between seeing a vague blob and recognizing an approaching threat. It was the original biological autofocus. Our ancestors likely took this principle even further. It's plausible they intentionally used their hands or a piece of bark with a small hole in it to create a more stable pinhole viewer for a critical moment. We have incredible archaeological proof of this principle being mastered. For thousands of years, the Inuit and Yupik peoples of the Arctic have crafted snow goggles from materials like wood, bone, or ivory. Their main job was to prevent the agony of snow blindness by cutting down UV light, but they had a remarkable secondary benefit. The narrow horizontal slits act as a wearable pinhole, not only reducing glare but also improving the depth of focus and sharpening distant vision. Anthropologists have noted that even people with modern vision issues find their sight improved when looking through these ancient designs. They are, in a way, a form of non-prescription eyewear, invented thousands of years ago. Beyond playing with the light entering their eyes, ancient people became masters of their environment. Someone with deteriorating vision would have instinctively instinctively known the value of position and contrast. A far-sighted craftsman wouldn't work in the dim back of a cave. They'd set up at the entrance, bathed in bright, natural daylight. A scribe would angle their work to catch the sun, making characters stand out. These weren't complex technologies, but simple, behavioral tweaks that maximized the vision they had left. And then there were the first steps toward actual magnification. Long before lenses were ground for glasses, people found the magnifying properties of certain objects. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote in the 1st century AD about how letters viewed through a glass globe of water appeared larger. This simple trick could have been a vital aid for an aging scholar or artisan. A more tantalizing hint comes from Mesopotamia. The Nimrud lens, a 3,000-year-old piece of ground rock crystal found in modern-day Iraq. Archaeologists still debate its purpose. Was it a magnifying glass, a fire starter, or just a fancy decoration? We may never know for sure, but it suggests the quest to augment our vision is an ancient one. Later, starting around the 11th century, monks copying manuscripts developed reading stones, polished, dome-shaped pieces of quartz they placed on the page to enlarge the text. These were a direct ancestor of the modern magnifying glass and, eventually, eyeglasses themselves. Section 3. The Revelation Part 2. Society as a safety net. Individual hacks could only do so much. A pinhole viewer couldn't help you navigate tricky terrain at dusk. The real human superpower, the one that truly changed the game for anyone with imperfect vision, wasn't a tool, it was us. It was the community. While we lack written records, it's a logical inference that ancient societies organically found the right job for the right eyes. This wasn't a formal system, but a natural process. Imagine a young person with myopia. Their distance vision is poor, making them a lousy lookout, but their near vision is exceptionally sharp. This person would be a phenomenal tool maker, able to chip the finest edge onto an arrowhead. They might excel at weaving intricate patterns or creating detailed rock art. Their impairment for one task could be an advantage for another. Conversely, an older, far-sighted person might struggle with close work, but could still spot the subtle movement of distant game, making them a great lookout. By embracing this diversity of ability, the community as a whole would have become stronger. This idea of community support isn't just a comforting theory. It's backed by some of the most profound evidence in the human fossil record. Let's go back 50,000 years to Shanidar Cave in modern-day Iraq. Here, archaeologists found the remains of a Neanderthal known as Shanidar I. His skeleton tells a brutal story. He had suffered a crushing blow to his head, which almost certainly would have blinded him in one eye. His right arm was withered and fractured, with some evidence suggesting it had been amputated long before his death. He also had injuries to his leg that would have left him with a painful limp and hearing loss. In a pure survival of the fittest world, Shanidar I should have died young. He would have been at a severe disadvantage when hunting and defending himself. And yet, he didn't. He lived to be between 35 and 50 years old, a ripe old age for a Neanderthal. He survived for decades with these debilitating injuries. The long-term survival of Shanidar I strongly suggests only one reasonable conclusion. He was cared for. Someone brought him food. Someone protected him from danger. Shanidar I is a silent monument to Neanderthal compassion. He's powerful evidence that the instinct to care for the vulnerable members of our group isn't a modern invention. It is an ancient, deep-seated part of who we are. Section 4. The Ancient Medics. Cures, quackery, and surprising successes. Beyond social support and clever hacks, ancient people also tried to fix the problem. Their medical knowledge was a fascinating mix of what we'd call magic, sharp observation, and a few surprisingly effective treatments. Let's go to ancient Egypt, around 1550 BCE, and the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents in history. This massive scroll is full of remedies, including many for eye diseases. A lot of them seem like pure superstition, calling for incantations or strange ingredients. But buried in the text are some intriguing recipes. For inflammation, some ointments contained honey, which we now know has antibacterial properties. Another treatment for blood in the eyes called for bathing them with human breast milk, and some modern researchers speculate that immune factors in milk might actually have a healing effect. Most remarkably, ancient texts from the region show that they had stumbled upon an effective cure for a specific type of vision loss. Night blindness is often caused by a vitamin A deficiency, and liver is one of the most concentrated sources of vitamin A on the planet. Ancient physicians recommended eating liver to treat night blindness. They had no clue about vitamins, but through trial and error, they found a genuine cure. Now let's jump to ancient India, around 600 BCE, where a legendary physician named Sushruta was compiling his medical encyclopedia. In the Sushruta Samhita, he gives a detailed description of a radical procedure for treating cataracts. The technique, later known as couching, was both ingenious and terrifying. The surgeon would use a special needle to pierce the eye and push the cloudy lens out of the way, dislodging it into the back of the eye. The procedure was incredibly risky and could easily lead to infection and permanent blindness. But for someone whose world had been stolen by cataracts, couching offered a chance. It was a gamble that could restore a degree of functional sight. This was one of the earliest and most detailed descriptions of invasive eye surgery in history. Finally, Let's visit Imperial Rome. The historian Pliny the Elder wrote that Emperor Nero would watch gladiatorial games by looking through a polished emerald. For centuries, this has puzzled historians. What was he doing? One modern theory is that Nero was nearsighted, and the gem acted as a crude corrective lens. Another is that the green color simply reduced the sun's glare, like very expensive sunglasses. Or maybe it was just a flashy display of wealth. We'll likely never know for sure, but the story of Nero's emerald perfectly captures the state of vision care for millennia, a world of improvisation and a desperate search for anything that might make things a little less blurry. Section 5. The Big Shift, the invention that changed everything. For thousands of years, humanity squinted, specialized, and supported each other. They used reading stones and looked to medics for risky surgeries. Then, in the late 13th century, somewhere in a glassmaker's workshop in northern Italy, an anonymous artisan had a world-changing idea. We don't know who they were, but based on historical evidence, the story probably went something like this. They took two of those polished reading stones and mounted them in a frame that could be perched on the nose. The first wearable eyeglasses were born. Initially, these spectacles were wildly expensive, a luxury for the wealthiest nobles and most learned monks. They became a status symbol, a declaration of wisdom, but their impact was far more profound. The first glasses had convex lenses, designed to fix farsightedness and age-related presbyopia. This was revolutionary. Suddenly, an experienced master craftsman, a scholar, or a scribe whose career was ending because of failing vision could keep working. This invention dramatically extended the productive careers of society's most skilled people, allowing precious knowledge to be preserved and passed on. When the printing press was invented in the 15th century, it kicked off a gradual rise in literacy over the next few centuries. With it, the demand for spectacles grew. Over time, glassmaking improved, and eyeglasses slowly became more accessible. For the first time, a common vision problem had a scalable solution. The world didn't have to go blurry as you aged. Humanity had finally invented a reliable way to fix its focus, the modern reframe, the twist. So, we solved it, right? Glasses, contacts, laser surgery. The ancient problem of bad eyesight is a relic of the past. Well, this is where the story takes its final, ironic twist. While we were busy solving the old problems, our modern lifestyle was creating a new one on an epic scale, an epidemic of myopia. Studies have found that in some urbanized East Asian populations with high-pressure education systems, myopia rates among young adults can be as high as 80 or 90%. That's nearly an entire generation. By contrast, when researchers study the few remaining hunter-gatherer populations, they find very low rates of myopia, often in the low single digits. What happened? The change was too fast to be purely genetic. The answer seems to be our environment, specifically our childhoods. A telling clue comes from a mid-20th century study of Inuit communities. Grandparents who grew up living a traditional life outdoors had myopia rates of around 2%. Their children and grandchildren, the first generations to spend their days inside reading, saw their rates skyrocket to over 50%. Same genes, different world. A leading scientific hypothesis suggests a growing eye needs a specific trigger to know when to stop growing. Bright, natural, outdoor light. Sunlight seems to prompt the release of chemicals like dopamine in the retina, which signals the eyeball to stop elongating at the right length for perfect focus. Our modern childhood, spent indoors, under dim artificial light, staring at screens and books, removes that crucial signal. The eye just keeps growing a little too long, and the result is myopia. Our advanced lifestyle is, in an evolutionary sense, actively harming our natural vision. Conclusion. The story of eyesight, then, runs almost exactly backward from what we'd assume. Our ancient ancestors, living under an open sky, likely experienced lower rates of myopia than we do today. This isn't to say their eyes were biologically better, as they still faced vision loss from age, injury, and disease, but they were living in the world their eyes had evolved for, and they met those challenges with remarkable ingenuity and compassion. The journey from a squinting hunter on the savannah, to a Neanderthal clan caring for a disabled member, to a medieval monk with a reading stone, to a modern child getting their first pair of glasses is the story of humanity itself. It's a story of recognizing a problem and relentlessly innovating to solve it. But more than that, it shows our greatest evolutionary advantage was never our sharp eyes, but our unparalleled ability to cooperate. We saw the world more clearly, together. Maybe the most important thing we can learn from our ancestors isn't how they saw the world, but how they saw each other. If you found this look into our blurry past fascinating, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories from the depths of human history.